my favorite shirt. Before we get into this review, I'd like to remind you kids of one thing. Say no to drugs. We are talking about the movie Mandy. This one is directed and co-written by Panos Cosmatos, who was the man behind Beyond the Black Rainbow. And stars Nicolas Cage. You've also got cameo appearances from Bill Duke and Richard Brake. And on the surfaces, when I tell you the plot here, it's going to sound somewhat of a generic revenge thriller. It focuses on this character called Red, played by Nicolas Cage, and he is out for revenge after this strange religious sect that they kind of like come across decides that they want his kind of girlfriend for their own and kidnap her, torture her and ultimately murder her and then leave him for dead. And then it's ultimately his kind of like picking himself up, crawling back and getting revenge on these guys. So that's it, that's your kind of, your basic plot. But the plot here isn't the point of this movie. The point of this movie is the visual styling and the kind of the weird, trippy aesthetic that this film has. Yes, the actual plot is actually very kind of generic and we've seen a bunch of times, but it's not the point of this film. Now, I've seen some reviews of this film and it really is giving it massively high praise. I've seen many 10 out of 10 films and saying, oh, it's so weird, it's so bizarre, it's so trippy. And to me, yeah, it definitely is. But being weird and trippy doesn't automatically make a film good and kind of, you know, it doesn't have any problems because of that. And I feel people are just getting caught up in this kind of like, oh, it's so kind of visually like, wow. And we can just completely ignore any kind of faults that this movie has. No, you can't do that, I'm afraid. It doesn't work like that. It is visually stunning. So this is going to be a hard film to talk about because there's not a lot of plot here. There's barely any dialogue in this movie. But it's all about these kind of the visuals of this film. So the visuals are breathtaking. It's visual poetry. Now the best thing I can kind of describe this as, if you've seen the illustrations in the Heavy Metal magazine, the kind of like these fancy illustrations, it kind of looks like a movie based in that kind of world. In actual fact, the female lead here, Nicolas Cage's kind of girlfriend in the movie, she's actually an artist and she's drawing all these kind of pictures, and obviously that's where it's kind of coming from. This movie also has knowing winks and nods to pop culture, especially of the kind of the 70s and maybe early 80s. And not the typical stuff as well. This is kind of goes in deep dives with some kind of you know, some references and some homages to some sort of grindhouse and exploitation kind of movies, and even stuff like obscure Marvel Comics references and stuff like that. So you know, there is a lot to kind of unpack here. There also is some extreme violence and some kind of like some quite neat scenes where the sequences happen. We have you know, a chainsaw duel straight out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre series and stuff like that. And it's a really kind of like quite quirky and interesting characters you'd probably expect. And yes, Nicolas Cage has full-on meltdown mode pretty much the whole second half of this movie. He's crazy Cage. So if you're wanting that, then you'll definitely get delivered. But for me, I need to talk about the kind of the negatives here. Then we'll kind of circle back and talk about some more positives for me. So this film, high praise indeed from every single review that I've seen so far. But I need to kind of be a bit realistic when I'm thinking about this movie for a general audience. This movie is extremely slow. It is extremely slow paced film, particularly in the first half. It does pick up in the second half when we kind of get the revenge thing going on, but prior to that it literally moves at a snail's pace, and we have just these very kind of like these weird arty sequences of these characters just kind of sitting together and kind of like spacing out quite a lot of the time. And yeah, I mean, it still has that kind of that visual flair, but nonetheless it is I mean, it kind of made me want to go to sleep, I'm not going to lie. It's just kind of very, very, you know, a slow burn to the point where you're feeling it's kind of like you just want it to get on with it a little bit. I feel this movie is particularly indulgent to the filmmakers. They've kind of obviously wanted to make something for themselves rather than something that I feel is more commercial. So it does, you can't help but feel it's particularly somewhat self-indulgent. Also for me, I had some issues with the plot. The plot is very simple, but there's small spoilers, I suppose. There's a sequence where halfway through the film, Nicolas Cage is stabbed in the guts, and it's never mentioned again. It never seems to be a hindrance for him. He's left for dead, stabbed in the kind of between the ribs. Just never kind of brought up again. When he goes on this revenge thing, there's two kind of like sets of people. There's this kind of religious cult who ultimately sort of who are the main sort of bad guys of this bit, but there's also this kind of strange, almost demonic-looking biker gang. And both these kind of groups of people, Nicolas Cage finds like this, and especially there's this like group of four like these weird bikers, and they're not like Hellraisers, they're like Cenobites. That they didn't look human, quite frankly, and that's the whole point. But it's like he finds them really like just straight away when there's been he has a conversation with Bill Duke's character. There's like, there's rumours of these kind of like these crazies that that are all masochists and stuff like that. And then he finds them straight away, and then he ends up in their house, and they're just all in there in their kind of like weird garb, just in their house. You tell me they're just in this garb all the time and talking in these kind of like croaky voices and all that. It's a little bit stupid if you ask me. And then once again he just finds the kind of the next group of kind of people straight away. And Nicolas Cage in this movie is a lumberjack, but he has expert level fighting skills apparently that are kind of never explained. So there's I feel this movie gets kind of like a free pass almost for a lot of people who have reviewed it. Oh, because it's weird and trippy, we don't concern ourselves with any details and stuff like that, and it just kind of like, yeah, it's do whatever it wants and it could be fine. No, I'm afraid it doesn't work like that if you ask me. I feel this movie still has to have rules. Just because it's weird and trippy doesn't mean to say that you can overlook certain things. This movie is also going to be a matter of taste, I feel, for a lot of people, and it really is. I mean, it's such a kind of like, it looks like you're just taking acid the whole time, and if you're not into that, then you're not going to like this film. The movie does pick up when we kind of go into our second half, and Nicolas Cage goes on his kind of revenge, and then we do get some moments of extreme violence and stuff like that, and so when Crazy Cage pops out and all of that, and that's more of your traditional kind of like revenge sort of story and stuff, and it does make for a pretty exciting moments in the film, coupled with this kind of very artistic kind of style. It does make it truly kind of like breathtaking at times, and a very kind of like scrumptious looking movie, and very unique flavour to it as well, considering it's kind of like this kind of like exploitation horror film that is this basically an art house film as well. And I can't help but feel some people maybe don't understand what they're watching, and therefore think, I don't want to look like an idiot, so therefore I'll just give it like a huge high mark and everything. But it is interesting, but I just don't feel it's not going to be for everyone, and I feel people are just kind of maybe looking past some of the issues maybe with this film, and just giving it a kind of a free pass. It reminds me of when I've seen the reviews for Summer of '84, because it's got this great 80s aesthetic. People just look over the kind of any faults for it, but there you go. I ain't going to do that, so there you go. But it is something truly unique. It is like watching kind of a visual representation of some kind of like horror poetry. It's the best way I can describe it. All the kind of performances are suitably bizarre. It really is just kind of being on drugs. And there's actually a couple of scenes where people are on drugs, and you're thinking, well, okay, fair enough. And Cage obviously has his kind of patented freak out moments, which ultimately kind of last half the movie. Cage isn't actually in it. It's not in it so much in the first half, to be honest with you. I think the movie's quite well cast here, of how everyone kind of looks kind of like the part that they should be playing. I think some of it's a little bit OTT. I think the biker gang's just a little bit kind of like, a little bit OTT, considering they are not meant to be supernatural. But there you go. But yeah, it's an interesting film. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10, because I do think it kind of goes over that being slightly above average by having such a unique voice. But I don't feel it's the classic, the perfect film that you may see other reviews give it. So it's 6 out of 10 for me. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.